These 5 principles, especially to master all areas of life, if you're a woman, our breath is the bridge between the body and our soul. Women urgently, immediately need that connection for them to even start the self-mastery journey. If meditation is not a 5-minute a day practice or a 15 minutes a week practice. Neuroscientists have found out that the only way the prefrontal cortex gets activated is by staying in effort state, like we do in classic Vedic meditation, at least 20 minutes. And you just connect with your destined path, your mission, who you are, your essence, and you start living your life aligned with a higher reality, which can also be called your destined path. And that was actually the aim of all esoteric traditions, which now is supported by science. So here's the interesting part. Okay, so this is kind of like a summary video around 5 principles of self-mastery. And I have to also underline that I think these are the 5 principles of self-mastery, especially for women, because I think women need these 5 principles and the 5 principles of self-mastery, these 5 principles more than men, but these 5 principles are also very much useful to men as well. So these 5 principles, especially to master all areas of life, if you're a woman, are the first principle is working with your breath, working with your dysfunctional breathing habits, checking if you have a dysfunctional breathing habit or not. Why? Because breath is the bridge between the body and our soul. We are all human beings, and we usually experience the human 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. But to experience our being, we need a different level of connection, and breath is the bridge from the human self to our being, from the physical body to our soul, which is our essence and our truth. And because 70% feminine energy is the spiritual energy, women urgently, immediately need that connection for them to even start the self-mastery journey. If we're not connected with our soul, if we don't build that bridge from the body to our soul, our essence, there's no way we can even start the self-mastery journey. And why working with our breath is very important, and what are dysfunctional breathing habits? Dysfunctional breathing habits are habits that are disaligned with our natural breath. We learn dysfunctional breathing habits when we are children, and the reason why we learn dysfunctional breathing habits is that we learn with our experience with life when we were children. We find out that by changing our breath, we can change how we feel and how we think. And that's why right now around the world, psychotherapists and psychologists and psychiatrists use breathing techniques to change how people feel. And we kind of like found a way to change how we feel and how we think when we were children. And most of us have learned dysfunctional breathing habits. And what's dysfunctional about breathing is that we tend to take control of our breathing, and then we tend to breathe in certain ways that are not necessary for the time being. For example, people tend to breathe deeper than they should so that they can relax themselves, but because their physiology and their body doesn't need that deep breathing at that time, what happens is they go into respiratory alkalosis and start experiencing symptoms like anxiety, panic attack, attention deficit problems, or learning disorders. The body only needs, the physiology, our physiology, the body only needs deep breathing. For example, when we're doing sports, when we are running and when we are active, due to the lactic acid release in the body, because the respiration regulates body fluid pH, by deepening the breath, our body is actually trying to compensate the lactic acid by deepening the breath, increasing the oxygen levels, decreasing the carbon dioxide levels, and leading us into a more alkaline state so that we can compensate acidity. But if you're not doing any sports and if you're not active, if you're just sitting at your desk, and if you're deeply breathing just to relax yourself, you tend to go into respiratory alkalosis, which is high oxygen levels, low carbon dioxide levels, and you start experiencing a symptom called hypocapnia, which has over 200 well-known, scientifically proven symptoms like anxiety, panic attack. And this is what dysfunctional breathing habits does. But also, the most important thing on the self-mastery journey is that if you have a dysfunctional breathing habit, the bridge between the body and your soul and your essence is broken. And that's one of the basic reasons why many women right now around the world are disconnected from themselves, because they broke the bridge by dysfunctionally breathing. So what we do is, in the first principle, we help people build that bridge again between the human and being, between the physical body and their soul. And we do it with active breath work, with breath analysis, by analyzing their breathing habits, finding out what they're doing wrong, with conscious connected breath work sessions. And we have an educational package in Nevşah Institute which lasts for a minimum of 6 months, and usually people stay in that package for a year, where they come to 2-day breathwork retreats, where they join us every month in 1.5-hour breathwork sessions, where they watch videos by themselves and analyze their breathing, work on their breathing, where they get also one-to-one sessions with the coaches. And also we work with CAPNO trainers as well to check what's going on in their respiratory chemistry while they're breathing dysfunctional. And that's why the first principle is breath, because by helping people, women, men and women as well, but women, like I said, sometimes need it more. And that's why I have had women in most of my seminars and retreats, and women around the world are right now joining breathwork sessions all around the world using breathing and breathwork more than men, because they need that connection immediately. And we kind of like feel we need the connection. And that's, I think, also why I started with breathwork, because I too was disconnected from who I was in my essence. I wouldn't say it was a disconnection, but it was kind of like I had a shallow breathing habit. So in my experience, because I had a shallow breathing habit, my connection with my essence and with who I was, which was, being the light to this world and helping humans master their lives and helping myself master my life, and also being the channel people can connect to unconditional love with, I had a very shallow relationship with myself, because I had a very shallow breathing habit. And that's why in the first breathwork session I ever done, this was many years ago, a breathwork teacher saw that I was breathing shallow, and he led me into breathing deeper, and everything started transforming in just after one breathwork session, because in that breathwork session I was able to, by his help, by a breathwork facilitator's help, I was able to breathe more than I probably did breathe in the past 20 years of my life. And it was magical, because I fully connected with who I was. And I remember getting up from that session, even though I had a lot of intense experiences, like I have tetany and I was vomiting, and it was rock and roll. Everything was everywhere. This truly intense session, although I had a very intense experience in my physical body, emotionally and with my connection with my soul, I knew that I needed that. I needed that strong, deep relationship, because I was yearning for that deep connection. And I stayed in the session, kept on breathing deep with conscious connected breathwork. And I remember at one point in the session, I told to myself, I'm going to use this tool. I'm going to learn how they do this tool, which is called breathwork, and I'm going to help people breathe deeper and connect with who they are on a deeper level for the rest of my life. And I did that, and I've been doing that. That's why I became a breathwork teacher. And in that breathwork session with only deep breathing, and that's kind of like how I changed my dysfunctional breathing habit. And people have all kinds of dysfunctional breathing habits. Mine was shallow breathing. And by gaining the ability to breathe deeper, I was fully connected with who I was, my essence, my mission, what I wanted in this lifetime. It's kind of like from that day on, after an hour and a half of a breathing session, from that day on, everything in my life started changing, because that bridge was built. It was kind of like it helped me to reconnect with myself, and I like fully reconnect again, and I haven't lost that connection ever until now. So the second principle of self-mastery is meditation. And people already know this, because there are more and more people, learning meditation, using meditation tools around the world. But there is one misunderstanding about meditation, which I would like to explain, and I would definitely like us to have in the book as well, which is meditation is not a 5-minute a day practice or a 15 minutes a week practice. The practices people are doing around the world right now by using meditation apps or going on YouTube, just being on that journey by themselves and saying, I am meditating, is not meditation at all. That's why when I talk about meditation and when I go into groups where I talk about meditation, I first ask the question, who is meditating? And 90% of the room raises their hands, because it's so popular, it's so trendy. And then I ask them, okay, who is meditating at least 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, and then all hands go down and just 3 people or 4 people are left. And then I say, these 3 are meditating. You are just doing kind of like, other practices, because meditation, the aim of the meditation is actually in the esoteric tradition. I will go into classic Vedic meditation, but it's like the aim of meditation for a start was to activate the third eye. So why people have been practicing meditation over hundreds of years, it was for an awakening process, for an awakening experience. So where does the awakening happen? It happens in the third eye, and we have been hearing about and reading about the third eye in all of esoteric traditions, starting from the 1st, 2nd centuries in Egypt and like everywhere around the world. Every esoteric tradition, it talks about the third eye being the center of awakening for human beings. And that also is very much aligned, of course, with the prefrontal cortex of the brain. So the awakening happens for humankind, the awakening literally happens in the prefrontal cortex of the brain. And the reason why people who meditated over hundreds of years ago did meditate daily for hours and hours and spent a lot of time in meditation is because they realized the more they sit down and spend their days closed eyes, something starts happening in the third eye. And what starts happening is, again, we start connecting with the being, with what is eternal. So we connect with the material world with our 2 eyes, and when your 2 eyes are open, and when you're looking at the material world, and when you are also captivated, let me say, with 5 senses, when we are in the material world experiencing the world with 5 senses, we tend to connect with the physical realm, and we tend to disconnect from the spiritual realm. Not fully maybe disconnect, but it's like we lose our focus. The reason why people for hundreds of years have been meditating was to sit down. The aim is to sit down and literally disconnect from the physical world by staying effortless as possible, so that you can connect with the other world, the spiritual realm. Because we are human beings, and humans are in action. The only thing you can't stop in a human is action. It's like even if you're stopping, your whole organs are working, and if you're not dead, you are in action. And there's no way you can stop that action, because everything is active, like your thoughts, your blood, your heart kidneys, intestines, it's like the lungs, they're expanding and contracting the whole time. So it's like the action happens. So for us to connect with our being, which does not have any action in it, and which is just this subtle eternal energy, or to connect with our soul, we need to stop all action. So that's why classic Vedic meditation is a practice done by being effortless, staying in as a deeper effortless state as possible, which allowing your thoughts, allowing your emotions, allowing your breath, just leaving everything as it is, so that you can leave the physical plane and tap into the next realm, which is the spiritual realm, and connect with your being. And the more you sit with yourself in an effortless state, the deeper you connect with your essence and your soul. So there has been a lot of research around classic Vedic meditation, and scientists have found out, neuroscientists have found out, that the only way the prefrontal cortex gets activated is by staying in effort state, like we do in classic Vedic meditation, at least 20 minutes. So the prefrontal cortex of the brain does not get activated if we don't sit in an effortless state at least for 20 minutes. That's a fact now, because research shows that. And people who do 5 minutes of meditation, they're not doing meditation. They may be using some manifestation tools or doing some imagination, because the prefrontal cortex isn't getting activated. The first goal of meditation is activating the prefrontal cortex. And many people are doing meditation by listening to other people. Like if you're doing meditation, what you call meditation, with, like by listening to a YouTube video or by using a meditation app, listening to someone, that's not meditation. You can practice breathwork sessions with a teacher, but you can't practice meditation with someone else, because meditation requires effortlessness, and that means not listening to anyone, even music, no incense, nothing. It just requires you to close your eyes and sit by yourself. And that's the only thing that activates the prefrontal cortex. Here is the interesting part. The prefrontal cortex takes 20 minutes to get activated, so you start experiencing the third eye being activated, which leads to, in the next 8 hours of your life experience, and that happens for everyone who's practicing regular meditation and who can say, I'm practicing meditation. After that third eye or the prefrontal cortex get activated, it stays activated between, and this is research information as well, it stays activated between 6 to 8 hours, depending on the individual, but maximum of 8.5 hours shows research. And in between those 6 to 8 hours, after I meditate, even if my 2 eyes are open, and even if I am looking at this world and experiencing the world with 5 senses, I still stay connected with my soul and essence, with the divine presence, which is the third eye, and also the prefrontal cortex is also all about the creative mind, being a visionary. And people also have nowadays, especially neuroscientists, have been calling this the executive center of the brain, because the prefrontal cortex of the brain, the difference between the prefrontal cortex of the brain and the lower cortexes of the brain is the difference between us being humans and the animal kingdom. When you look at the animal kingdom, you see that the lower lobes of our brains are active, and the lower lobes of the brain are fully connected with the body. And if you ask what's there in the lower part of the brain, and we call it the reptilian brain, or the lower part of the brain, or the animal brain, or the animal mind. So what's there are receptors. Millions of receptors. What these receptors at the lower part of the brain are doing is it's gathering all the information around the body about our blood, about our pH. So it's gathering all the information about our organs, our tissues, everything that's going on in the body, every little detail and information that we can't grab our hands onto, it's like it's too many information, are stored here in the lower parts of the brain. And the brain is getting information from the overall body with its receptors. So the brain knows exactly what's going on in the body, your lungs, your muscles, your tissues, moment by moment, like every millisecond it knows. And the only job of the lower part of the brain is to keep the body alive. So the lower part of the brain is only and fully interested in keeping the body alive. That's why it's getting all the information with the receptors, and then it's sending signals to your brain, to your heart. That's why your heart beats faster sometimes, or your heart beats, for example, if you drink too much coffee, it beats faster because you got this toxic, it is trying to get rid of it. Or if you're, for example, doing sports, body releasing lactic acid, the respiratory reflexes kick in, you tend to breathe deeper. So it's like everything we do with the body reflexively is managed by the brain. And that's why that side of the brain is also called the survival part of the brain, which is also in all animals. So when humans only use the lower parts of the brain, and when they do not meditate, and when the prefrontal cortex is not active, a human is no different than an animal. The human experience is with the five senses, and I'm only connected with my body and five senses, and I'm not connected with a creative way of thinking or the divine will. I'm not connected with the divine will. I'm not connected with creative thinking. I'm not connected with my visions or being a visionary. I cannot sense or see the future because the prefrontal cortex, when it stays activated, especially for a long period of time, for example, if you meditate in a disciplined way in the morning and in the evening, at least 20 minutes every day, you start seeing the future. And that has been my experience. Like, you can literally see what's going on in 6 months and a year, 50 years, 100 years. You can't put it into words, but you start sensing. So the prefrontal cortex of the brain, and what in the esoteric traditions called the third eye, is where we awaken to our higher truth. We connect with our eternal self, which can be called the soul, or we can connect with the divine will, or we can also say we connect with our destiny, our mission, visions, the ability to see the future, the ability to sense things by using the frontal lobe of the brain. But the problem is that prefrontal does not get activated if you don't sit at least 20 minutes, in effortless in 20 minutes a day. That's actually why many startup founders around the world and many business leaders have been retreating or going on retreats, being in silence. And there are stories even about like Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos or other business gurus, that they do not decide on anything before going to their room and sitting in silence for at least half an hour or 1 hour. And it's very obvious. It's like, because unless you sit in an effortless state at least 20 minutes, you just can't decide with the executive mind. This is the executive part of the brain. And neuroscientists are explaining, and they have been doing a lot of research around that. Once the executive mind is activated, people start kind of like having all kinds of creative ideas, and they see visions, and it's kind of like, this is our creative center. This is where we connect with the creator or connect with the creation itself or the divine will. And neuroscientists have been doing research with people who meditate for a long time, and they have been seeing that if they have been able to, and I'm going to explain how, if they have been able to keep the prefrontal cortex activated throughout their lives, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, month after month, they build amazing things, and they experience life in a very focused, like crystal clear mind level, is that executive level, which I've been experiencing myself for some time now, you tap into this state of crystal clear mind. You have no, the choices in life disappear, and you just connect with your destined path, your mission, who you are, your essence, and you start living your life aligned with a higher reality, which can also be called your destined path. And that was actually the aim of all esoteric traditions, which now is supported by science. So here's the interesting part. Research shows that in, like I said, in between 6 to 8.5 hours, depending on the individual, if you meditated in the morning, imagine you did a 20-minute meditation in the morning, not 19, not 21 minutes, 20, and then that get activated, and then you live your life, you get into daily experiences, and you have this sense of purpose and sense of mission full on for the next 6 hours, 7 hours, which gives you also kind of like, it's kind of like your sense of where to go as well. It's kind of like this inner compass that is like leading you into daily activity. Even though your two eyes are open and you're in the five senses world and the physical world, I tell, like I had this podcast with Nick, I explained it in the podcast as well, like how I feel is I experience life with closed eyes. Even though your eyes are open, they're kind of like not fully open, and you're not fully connected with this world anymore, but you're like more, you have a compass just feeling where to go and what to do. But the interesting thing is, if you don't sit down and meditate again after 6 to 8 hours, the prefrontal cortex shuts down. You lose the activation. That's why, as classic Vedic meditation teachers, we tell people, unless you're meditating a minimum of 20 minutes in the morning, minimum 20 minutes in the evening, and unless I can, as a meditation teacher, with the level of my governance, which I'm going to explain, keep you on that path, you are not meditating, because you're still experiencing your life with the lower part of the brain. The magic, the miracle about meditation is doing it in a disciplined way, staying in an effortless state in the morning and in the evening, and keeping your prefrontal cortex, the executive mind, active, because that is what changes our daily experiences. And for men and women, it's a bit different, because like I said, for women, that creative center combined with the womb and with the creative energy, it's something else. It's kind of like every little thing you envision, it just happens instantly kind of feeling. For men, it's kind of like you see visions, you set goals, and then you get into action. It's a different process, but still, the executive mind being activated for a human is a different experience. So the masters live with their executive minds active, which is probably 2% of the overall world population, and do amazing stuff. And the last thing, the research shows that once the executive mind is active and stays active, the people who were able to get there and stay there were able to go beyond their physical limits. They were able to experience life beyond their physical limits. Like I'm experiencing life right now beyond my physical limits, because I'm almost 50 and I have never ever been this fit and powerful in my physical body. And there's an interesting Netflix movie about it. I think it's a real life story. Maybe you watched it. It's about a champion, a swimmer. Yes. So in the film, this is the exact message they are giving. In the end of the movie, they ask her, because she couldn't swim from Miami to Cuba, or I don't know where was it, but when she was in her 20s, but she was able to break her own record, and she was able to swim all that journey when she was over 60. And then when they did an interview, this is a real life story, when they did an interview, she told them, in my 20s, my physical body was strong or stronger, but now my mind is stronger. And that's like what you can achieve, because when the mind is stronger and when you're in that governing mind, you literally can go beyond all kinds of physical limits, and you start experiencing a higher level of resilience and dedication, and it's kind of like this compass, and you just become this unstoppable individual. So that's actually what classic Vedic meditation is all about. And the last thing to be said, in the classic tradition, it is said that if you don't have a teacher that started meditation many years before you and who is at the highest level of mind governance and self-governance, there is no way you can stay on the path. So the classic Vedic meditations are trained in such a way that it takes around 15 to 20 years for us to become a meditation teacher. The way we are trained is we wait until we get to the ultimate level of self-governance or mind governance, because when you get to a level of mind governance after like 15 years of daily meditation every day, at least 40 minutes, an hour. Now, for example, for me, it's between 1.5 hours, 2 hours usually a day. You don't only govern yourself, your body, your mind, you start governing your environment, and you start governing the people you are connected with, because you have gained the ability to telepathically connect with them. And that's why, like I have been helping my teachers on the meditation path, that's why I do not have any meditation students who do not meditate in the morning and at night, because when they forget, for example, to meditate, they hear my voice, they see me in their dreams, like they feel my presence because of that self-governance to them. So that's why it is said in the classic Vedic tradition that you can continue meditation and reach to the highest levels of consciousness and the highest level of meditation only when you have the teacher to govern your mind as well and kind of like keep you in track. And that's how I teach meditation. Like I keep my students in track. I govern their minds on staying in track. It's kind of like it is my responsibility as a teacher to remind them the importance of meditation and keep them in that path. And because I can do it, they can stay in the path. So some people do not know much about meditation, much about the mind. Classic Vedic meditation needs a deep level of training. So that's why in Nevşah Institute, in the meditation package, the crystal clear mind formula, we say, we first teach our students what classic meditation is, and then 5 functions of the mind, how to align the mind, different levels of meditation, different levels of consciousness, what they are going to experience in each level of consciousness, what they're going to experience in each level of the mind, what the experience will look like when they're aligned, the 5 functions of the mind. So meditation, for us to truly experience meditation and keep on meditating, first we need a deep level of training, like we need education. Because there is one of the reasons why people can't meditate each and every day is because they are not trained yet. They are not trained about the mind, about the consciousness. You know, it's kind of like this muscle you're building, and if you don't have a trainer, it's like imagine someone who never ever had done exercise in their lives and they're trying to do some exercises on their own, or someone who just started yoga and they don't have a yoga teacher and they're trying to do it on their own. There's a high chance that you might injure yourself. It's the exact same thing. It's like there's a high chance you might injure yourself if you don't know where you're going. So the first level is the training, and then we meet every week with my meditation teachers, sit in meditation at the same times. I give them certain times during the day where I know I'm going to be sitting down and meditating, so that if they need my help or support, they can channel into that meditation energy and feel the support, they get their answers. And because it's kind of like the responsibility of the meditation teacher is with 15, 20, whatever, I have 25 years of experience on that journey, on that spiritual path, just showing them the way, and also staying as the channel to truth that will help them come back to themselves and help them with every little problem they are facing along the journey, because you start experiencing a lot of stuff like we talked about in the previous videos and also previous questions. The experience of a woman in the spiritual realm is very different, and when a woman goes on a spiritual journey, it gets so deep they freak out. And just because they don't have a teacher to give them the answers, who have been on that path and who experienced exactly the same things, they just feel lost. It's like right now, because my students in the meditation course have been meditating, the longest have been meditating for 3 to 4 years probably, because I started teaching meditation 4.5 or 5 years ago. Because I waited 15 years to become a meditation teacher. I waited until I could really govern all of them and help them stay on the path. Like I do not have any questions that I don't have the answers to, because I experienced everything they did. I have been there 20 years ago, so I know what they're experiencing. I know the next steps, so it's kind of like I'm helping them with the experience. So that's the second principle. So the third principle is transforming the mind, and it is also very much related to the second principle, which is meditation, because the principle mind, which is transforming the judgments and biases and distorted perceptions in the mind's aim, is the same with meditation, is to activate the prefrontal cortex and keeping that prefrontal cortex activated. So the other way to keep the prefrontal cortex activated, as you remember in the second principle, I told you, like the prefrontal cortex stays activated between 6 to 8.5 hours, depending on the individual. So when you look at which individuals are mostly stuck in the ego or in the lower parts of the brain, are the individuals who have more judgments and distorted perceptions. So it's kind of like the more is this electromagnetic field, it can expand and it can condense. So when you look at an expanded version of the mind, it is the prefrontal cortex being activated, and people who are in the executive mind also have an objective point of view and a balanced point of view, and their minds are in equilibrium. But when you look at the people who judge and who have been judging since childhood, who have, like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, automatic thinking behavior, who have been judging and who haven't been aware of their judgments and who've been automatically judging and distorting their perceptions of life, which is either looking at the positive side or the negative side, and creating a one-sided point of view. But because we live a quantum entanglement world, there is no one side of reality. There's always two sides of the reality, which is positive and negative combined. So the more judgments people have, the more biases they have, the more they have been judging life. What happens is those judgments and distorted perceptions have led to having episodic memories which are in the brain synapses and which are decreasing the level of IQ, which is decreasing the level of concentration and focus. And we can do a lot of research on episodic memories, because neuroscientists have been working on episodic memories and how they've been created and what they are leading to. The more episodic memories you have, for example, the more stupid you become. And it goes until you have Alzheimer. It's like you lose your memory, you lose your focus. As the episodic memories increase in the brain, these are like little photographic memories which are negative or positively charged, that are inside brain synapses, that are decreasing the speed of the brain, the speed of the process. So if you think of the brain as a computer, it's kind of like these episodic memories are little viruses inside the brain that are decreasing the speed of the speed of your learning, the speed of the processing system in the brain, which can lead to Alzheimer, which leads to, in people, the loss of attention, loss of focus, learning disorders, ADD, ADHD, and you can have Alzheimer's due to that. And when neuroscientists researched on these episodic memories, they found out that these are photographic memories with positive or negative charges, which are the result of distorted perceptions and judgments people have. And people tend to have judgments about life, for example, calling an incident good or bad. And when people usually have judgments, and when they want to see the story and the event with a one-sided view, they suppress the other side into their, what we call, subconscious. So what we do is, when we want to judge life, so for example, some event happens and something happens, and someone says something, and then if you want to call that event, incident, or that behavior or action or inaction bad or negative, you tend to suppress the positive side of that behavior, the benefits, the positive, the good side of that behavior, action, inaction, or that incident to your subconscious. And that is the negative charge in the brain, which is called episodic memories. And the more episodic memories people have, it's kind of like those episodic memories weigh the energy down. The more episodic memories you have, because they are in the lower parts, so they stay in amygdala and lower sides of the brain, the back lobes of the brain, the more episodic memories you have, the oxygen and the energy goes to the lower part. And even though you meditate, and even though you activate the third eye or the prefrontal cortex, in a couple of hours, that energy weighs you down, and the whole oxygen energy goes in that part of the brain. And again, you are left with the survival part of the brain. So that's why, while we teach meditation, we also teach certain methods to our students so that they can neutralize the episodic memories. They can clear out the episodic memories so that they can neutralize the judgmental thoughts, get free of the subjective thinking, and get to an objective thinking. Because once the episodic memories are transformed, the oxygen and the energy rushes through the prefrontal cortex, and working with the mind and transforming judgments and biases is another way to activate the prefrontal cortex, which activates the executive mind, and which is kind of like the root of self-mastery. And that's why, we teach you the method, and we teach our student methods. They watch videos, they practice on their own, they come to online workshops, they come to live workshops. I meet with them every month to mentor them and help them to transform their minds. And that's the third self-mastery principle. The fourth is aligning with purpose. Greek mythology, people probably know about the word telos, which is being connected or being aligned with the God self. So when you look at how people experience telos, which is kind of like chief aim, or the highest level of your potential and the highest level of your capacity, how people can reach to the point of telos, their God selves, the highest level of their creativity and the highest level of their mind and the highest level of their performance and capacity, is by aligning with purpose. Because purpose helps us go beyond the physical realm and physical limits, and purpose helps us experience the highest levels of ourselves, of our mind and creativity, and we can tap into our geniusness by aligning with our purpose. So what we do in Nevşah Institute is we ask some simple questions, and we lead people into understanding who they are, because if you don't understand who you are, your humanity, your human design, who you are, your purpose, priorities, how you think, how you live and experience life, you will not be able to align with purpose. So we ask you some questions, we look at the origin story, We look at what differentiates you and who are you in your essence, in your origin, what your life experience has been, because we know that living a life disaligned with purpose will require constant outer motivations. With people who are disaligned from their purpose, their essence, their truth, are people who need constant motivation, people who need constant push from the outside, and people who need structures, who live life with have-tos and must, and they force themselves into things and they push themselves, and usually they become sick and unwell because they push themselves too much and they try to motivate themselves into action if they are disaligned from purpose and from their big why, I can say. But when you look at people who have a deeper purpose, who are connected with the big why, you see that they do not need outer motivation. Because if you know your purpose and if you're inspired if you're with a mission, if you're inspired from within, you do not need anyone to tell you to stay in action, or you do not need to push yourself. You do not need any kind of outer motivation. And research shows that, for example, when you look at the startups that were successful and the founders that were successful and people who created amazing businesses and people who were highly successful, research shows that those people, 99% of those people, are very much inspired and they are with a purpose and with a mission. Most people think why startups fail is because they were unlucky or they didn't have the right circumstances, and why startups succeed or why founders succeed is because they were lucky or the economy was in the right situation or this and that. But actually, luck is someone with a purpose, and when you look at successful entrepreneurs and successful businesses and read their stories, I have been reading their stories, you see that each one of them who did succeed was with a mission and was creating a business with a deeper purpose, with a deeper meaning. And because it was aligned with their unique purpose and their mission in life, they were the ones who did not need outer motivations. They were so inspired from within, they didn't need anyone to tell them to stay on path or to tell them to keep on working. No matter what happened, they kept on going, because with inner inspiration, with a clear purpose, if you're connected with your mission, your why, if you know why you exist and why you are here, and if you're connected with a deeper soul mission, no one can stop you, because you don't need motivation. You wake up in the morning, you keep on doing what you're doing. Even if you face problems, you don't care, you keep on going. It's the highest level of consciousness and human get to is connecting with purpose and being clear about who you are and your mission in this lifetime, because only then you have unlimited resilience. Only then you are unstoppable. Only then you wake up in the morning and you can't wait to work and do more. And only then no problem, no limit, nothing stops you, because you keep on going and going and going, and you are resilient and you are powerful and you're creative, and it's kind of like having this inner charge that keeps you going. And if you have that, if you have tapped into that inner charge that keeps you going, that is your deep, deep soul mission and purpose, like I said, no one can stop you. You just go on and on and on until you get there. And for those people who have a purpose and who have a mission, they do not even care about, it's kind of like being in the telos consciousness level. It's kind of like also brings you it just takes you into a level of consciousness where you don't even care about where you're gonna get to. You are so inspired and you're so fulfilled on just being on that path. You just stop caring about the future, and those are the people who succeed, and those are the people who are masters. So that's the fourth. The fifth principle is strategy and strategic planning, because people who do not who do not take the time to plan, are the ones who should plan to fail. Because if you don't plan in this life, you are you probably will fail. The way we get results in life is through planning, whether it be sitting down in meditation and having a clear vision and planning in the mind and writing them down and creating action plans, or whether it be creating a mastermind group, meeting with the group once a week, twice a week to create the plans. Planning helps us get results. So the fifth principle is planning, but we don't. So in the fifth principle, we do not allow anyone to join the perfect life plan program. We call the strategic planning program the perfect life plan, because if you're in the executive mind, and if you have your prefrontal cortex activated, if you don't have any judgments and biases anymore, if you work with your breath, if you have a clear mission purpose and you're at the telos level of humanity, you're already unstoppable. The only thing you need to do is sit down, take some time to plan, to bring that focus and to bring that energy that's happening here, the self-governance and clear vision and mission energy, that alliance to life itself, to the material world. So the fifth principle is strategic planning. The educational package is the perfect life plan, but we do not allow any students who haven't worked with their minds and who haven't done meditation or who aren't clear in their purpose to join that training, because if you still have conditioning in the mind, if you're conditioning about how life should be rather than what you are inspired to create, even though those questions we ask you and that planning and strategic work works, and even though you will be able to reach your goals, you'll probably lose what you have in a couple of years, or you will be so unfulfilled and unsatisfied, like it won't give you the results. So the first steps, those are the first steps, like the the three principles with the mind, which is the mind, meditation, purpose, are necessary for the fifth level, because it is necessary for us to know what inspires you, what inspires us, and our mission and purpose before we even start strategic planning, because everything else will fail. It's kind of like building a building without the root, the structure of the building. So we do that, and then afterwards we lead people into a 4, sometimes 5-day workshop where we ask them over 500 questions and help them plan all areas of life: relationships, career, wealth management, financial mastery, business mastery, relationship mastery, health, leadership. We train them and coach them and lead them into planning basically all areas of life, so that we can make sure our students have mastered their minds, their breath, their body behaviors, their lives, and started planning and started getting results in all areas of life. So first of all, everything in the universe is energy. And that is now well known. Everything is an electromagnetic field, and we are experiencing the journey of, the life experience we call, is actually the journey of the photons. And the electromagnetic waves are just journeying in this world, and everything is energy, including our physical body. And in reality, there is no time and space, because energy and light, which is that electromagnetic field, which is life or the divine, or you can call it even God, which is eternal life force energy, isn't experiencing time or space. So time and space depends on the perception of humankind. When you have more judgments and more distorted perceptions, you tend to live more in the time and space illusion, or the time and space reality, and you tend to live in a gravitational reality and a physical reality. But whereas when you expand the consciousness and when you tap into light and love, which is an equilibrium level of the mind, in your consciousness, you tend to get free of the physical body, and you tend to experience and vibrate in a higher frequency, which can be also called the gamma frequency, because gamma frequency is the highest level of frequency we can experience in a human body, which happens when the mind is in equilibrium, when the mind is objective, without any judgments, and when we connect with unconditional love, what is eternal, and we connect with our soul, with divine will and with divine reality, and when the mind expands, which is like, I have this image in my head, I sometimes see it on internet, a master meditating, and then from the third eye, the light just shines outward and the consciousness expands, and that's gamma frequency. And in that frequency, there is no time, no space. We do not experience ourselves as the physical body. We tend to experience the eternal self and the soul, and we tend to connect with a deeper meaning of life, deeper mission and deeper purpose. But the more we have judgments and the more we have biases and distorted perceptions, the more episodic memories we have in the brain, the deeper we start experiencing mind and space illusion. So we kind of like get trapped in the time and space illusion and in the body. So what we experience in the body or what we experience in the physical plane depends on the level of consciousness. Everybody isn't experiencing the same thing in their physical body. A lower consciousness experiences more weight, heaviness, and more gravity in their bodies, because once the consciousness shrinks, the more the consciousness shrinks due to condensed energies, and which condenses the energy, which condenses the consciousness, a condensed consciousness energy, which is like a lower frequency energy, it happens by a conditioned mind. So it's like the more judgments we have, the more we shrink the consciousness and we create this condensed energy, and that condensation happens due to our judgments. And the more condensed the consciousness, the more condensed is the light energy, is the divine energy, which is everywhere, the electromagnetic field. It's kind of like we have the power with our minds to condense the energy or expand the energy. We can vibrate in the highest level of energy, connected with the divine, when we don't have any structure in the mind, any judgments or biases, when we are open-minded and objective, but we also have the power to condense that energy and lower our frequency. And the lower the frequency gets and the more condensed the mind and the consciousness get, the more we will experience more of gravity. We start experiencing the gravitational force. We start experiencing more weight. That's why people say, I have too much weight on my shoulders, because that's exactly what's happening. Like saying, I have weight on my shoulders, like I feel heavy, is due to, means I have too many distorted perceptions or I have too many judgments, because the more judgments you have, the more you are lost in time and space, the more physical you are, the more heavy you are. You are living in a gravitational time and space body reality. So how we experience the body and the body reality is very different depending on the consciousness. The people, the masses, and the wide group of humanity all around the world are experiencing a physical world, and they are living in a time and space illusion, which leads to them experiencing time as past, present, and future. And because they are in the physical body and experiencing past, present, and future, most of them are living day-to-day experiences without planning and without visions or without missions, what I might call just living. So the more you're connected with the body, the more you're connected with the time and space, the more condensed the consciousness is, the more bodily experience you have. And because the body will die, people have fear depending on that. It's like the more condensed the consciousness gets, the more fear they build, because the more condensed it gets, the lower frequency of the consciousness is connected with the body, which will die, which is connected with fear of dying, and which is also connected with the physical five senses and with the experience of life and death. And in the higher frequencies, that gets transformed. Everything is energy, and everything is electromagnetic energy. And with the mind, if we have an open mind, we experience this unlimited eternal energy. But when we have judgments, we kind of like create a box around the electromagnetic eternal energy, and that eternal energy becomes mortal. It's like this. There was a picture Luke shared with me, the consciousness. No, it's kind of like as the consciousness expands, our connection with the body decreases. As the consciousness shrinks, and as we have more judgments, we create kind of like this box and just put the electromagnetic field into our limiting thoughts, and it gets trapped into a box, and we get trapped into a box which we call body. Because we're talking about the body, everything that is in our mind, like all of the distorted perception in the mind and those episodic memories, which are electrical charges in the brain, are reflected in the body. So the more episodic memories people have, and this is also, this is a fact by research, because neuroscience have been doing researches around that, all of the little electrical charges in the brain, which are called episodic memories, which are charged, either positive or negative charged photographic memories, also are being reflected in the body, and people's physical bodies are also charged due to the level of the charge in the brain. So the more charge you have in the brain, the more charge you have in the body, and with that charge, the body starts experiencing symptoms. Because if you keep on judging in your mind, if you keep on seeing reality in a distorted way, and if you keep on creating more and more episodic memories, and if you are not doing anything to transform these episodic memories, they are there in the brain, they stay. And that's kind of like constantly loading electrical charges in the body, which is the main reason of all symptoms people are experiencing, because those charges in the body limit the body's already existing working mechanism, the wellness mechanism. So it's kind of like, it's like those are creating diseases. I like the word ease and disease a lot, because actually the less electromagnetic, the less episodic memories people have, the more equilibrium they have in the mind, the less negative or positive charges we have in the brain and in the body, the more we are at ease. A mind that is at ease and at equilibrium, an objective mind, a higher level of consciousness in the mind, an expanded mind, gets reflected as ease and balance and equilibrium in the body, and the body is this balanced, and every practice is trying to do that, like yoga, meditation, like all of the esoteric practices are trying to get there, like to bring the mind and body into balance and equilibrium, because that's kind of like ease. That might be also called 7.4 pH, like the perfect pH level. That can also be called mathematically, like 0 point in mathematics and maths. It can be called perfect balance in physics. It can be called 7.4 pH in chemistry. It can be called the mean in philosophy. So it's kind of like this mean and balanced and centered place where we are in peace and at ease. When that gets distorted, which is kind of like when we have the positive or negative charges in the brain, that mean, we lose track of that mean, and we create this, when there is a positive or negative charge, instead of being in balance and at ease, our electromagnetic field becomes wobbly. It's kind of like this negative and positive creates this energy around us, this wobbly energy, and we kind of like, our energy is not strong and balanced. Like in yoga practices, there is this balance poses, and because I was trained as a yoga teacher, and I have a period of my life in my early 20s where I did lead yoga lessons for a couple of years, and I would see it's kind of like the more people were lost in the mind, the harder it was for them to be balanced in the physical body, because the charges in the brain and the distorted perceptions in the mind, if you have a chaotic mind, you will have an unbalanced body. You will have a problematic and symptomatic body, because once you lose the balance in the mind, it will get reflected to the brain, and there will be electrical charges in the brain. And once these electrical charges are reflected in the body will not be at ease, but it's going to be at dis-ease. So all diseases are the result of being not at ease, being diseased. And that negative and positive frequency causes people to be diseased. They're not balanced. So when you lead those chaotic mind people into, for example, a balance pose in yoga, they just don't seem to have that balance. They're like wobbly, they're wobbling, and their life experiences are also like that. They are people who we don't trust or we don't feel good with. It's like this wobbly energy. The more distorted the mind gets, the more wobbly it gets. And that's also in the body and in the physical environment, dis-ease, kind of like dis-ease. I think yoga is a great practice to add on to the self-mastery journey. And it's kind of like, I think it's like yoga, running, physical exercise, listening to classic music, reading books that support your vision or mission, eating healthy foods. I think these are all results of a higher mindset, an objective mindset, and a wise human being. It's kind of like, I think these are the results. So people think by doing yoga, they can reach to self-mastery, but it's the opposite. When you reach to self-mastery, you start doing yoga. When you reach to self-mastery, you start eating healthy. When you reach to self-mastery, you start reading books that support your vision and mission instead of, watching things that do not, or doing things that do not. It's like the way you spend your money, the way you spend your time, the way you spend your energy, what you eat, what you drink, your behaviors, everything from an easeful state, from a 7.4 pH and from a point of mean, which is point of purpose as well, or a wisdom in the mind, a wise state in the mind, you tend to behave differently. And that's kind of like sitting at the core of behavioral health sciences. And this is like basic behavioral health sciences, because it's obvious that for humans to get results, they have to, if you want to get different results, you want to behave differently. And if you want to change the results you get in life, you need to change your behaviors. But to change the behavior, there's a whole science behind it, which is called behavioral health sciences. To change a behavior, you need to change your thinking pattern. Because without changing your thoughts, without changing your beliefs or your motivation in the mind, you can't change your behavior. And that is basic behavioral science. To change human behavior, we need to change the human mind first. So it's like, and masses get it the opposite way. It's like people think if they eat healthy, they will think healthy. It's the opposite. When you think healthy, you eat healthy. It's like when you push yourself, it's the thing with the fourth principle, the purpose. When you push yourself to eating healthy, that's different. But if you eat healthy from an inspired, inner inspiration point of view, it's different.